Heyo, welcome back to Cartoon Mania. Today we're gonna cover the series Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends from beginning to end in detail. We'll also delve into the past of some of the major characters, so kick back, relax, and let's dive into it. The series is set in a world where imaginary friends who are created by children's active imaginations come to life. However, as children grow older and their interests change, they often outgrow their imaginary friends, leaving them without a place to go. This is where Foster's Home comes in. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends is a foster care facility run by an elderly woman named Madam Foster and her granddaughter Frankie. The home serves as a sanctuary for abandoned or forgotten imaginary friends, providing them with a safe and loving environment to live in until they are adopted by new children. So, the main character of the show is called Mac, an 8-year-old boy who has an imaginary friend named Blue. But one day, Mac's mom drops the bombshell that he's getting too old for an imaginary friend and he has to let go of Blue.
Mac, you're 8 years old, and you still have your imaginary friend.
Devastated by the news, Mac and Blue come across an ad for the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, where good ideas are never forgotten. They decide to check it out, only to discover that it's an adoption center for imaginary friends. Mac realizes that if he leaves, Blue might get adopted by someone else. Determined not to lose his best buddy, he promises to come back after school to visit. But when he gets home, his mean brother Terrence starts giving him a hard time about Blue. Mac stands up for himself and tells Terrence that he took care of everything. The next day at Foster's, things get a little crazy when a rich couple shows up looking for an imaginary friend for their spoiled daughter. They've got their eyes set on Duchess, but the girl spots Blue and goes chasing after him. It's a wild race as Eduardo, Wilt, and Coco team up to keep Blue out of her clutches. But she does catch him in the end. Just when it looks like Blue might be adopted, Mac shows up just in time to save the day. The millionaires leave empty-handed, and Duchess is fuming with anger because Blue foiled her chance to leave Foster's. Meanwhile, Mac's pesky brother Terrence has been spying from the bushes and realizes that Mac still has Blue. Terrence and Duchess decide to team up to take down their common enemy. Mac and Blue better watch out. The next day, as Mac is heading towards Foster's, his troublesome brother Terrence intercepts him and drags him back home. Terrence locks Mac in his own bedroom closet, leaving him trapped. Meanwhile, Terrence decides to pay a visit to Foster's himself, trying to put on a good impression. Duchess, always up to mischief, creates a distraction by provoking one of the Extreme Azores, diverting attention away from Blue. With the coast clear, Terrence finds himself alone with Blue. Back at home, Mac manages to escape from the closet and rushes to Foster's as fast as he can, but it's too late. Terrence's adoption of Blue is already in progress. To make matters worse, Frankie, Eduardo, Wilt, and Coco confront Mac, accusing him of abandoning Blue. Mac tries to explain that he never intended to abandon his friend and that he understands the consequences of such actions, but his friends are skeptical and disappointed. Luckily, after putting together the pieces, Frankie and the gang realize that Terrence and Duchess are in cahoots when they discover the empty cell of the Extreme Azores. That night, Terrence takes Blue to a junkyard where he meets up with Duchess. Duchess reveals her wicked plan to get back at Blue by feeding him to the freed Extreme Azores. The Extreme Azores starts chasing Blue all around the junkyard, with Terrence and Duchess gleefully watching from afar.
Remember me? Wanting danger? Think you might wanna...
As the Extreme Azores corners Blue, just moments away from a dreadful end, Mac and his friends arrive on unicorns, giving Blue the chance to dodge the vicious creature. In the middle of all this craziness, Terrence and Duchess get knocked out and swallowed by that big monster, the Extreme Azores. Blue and Mac are totally shocked, but then the monster changes sides and spits them out right in front of Frankie and Mr. Harriman. Terrence gets locked up with the unicorns as punishment for his sneaky ways, and Duchess has to stick around at Foster's because she can't stand the place. Mr. Harriman still isn't sure about letting Blue stay for good, but Madam Foster, who was assumed dead, shows up. She sees how much Mac and Blue mean to each other and decides that Blue can stay at Foster's forever and never be adopted out as long as Mac keeps visiting. So from here on out, the show mainly revolves around Mac and Blue's adventures and Mac's ability to befriend any imaginary friend he comes across. Now that you understand the setting of the show, let's talk about the character dynamics. Firstly, we have Mac, who is one awesome kid. He's super smart, creative, and caring. He's not afraid to wear his heart on his sleeve, and he's the genius behind creating Blue, his imaginary friend. He came up with Blue when he was just a little 3-year-old boy, and ever since they've been the best of friends. Mac is like a problem-solving pro, and he can figure out almost anything that comes his way. He's got a big imagination and a big heart, and that's what makes him so special. Mac is like the ultimate peacemaker. He's got this amazing ability to reason things out and find solution to all the crazy mishaps that happen around Foster's home. Even with Blue's never-ending antics, Mac stays good-natured and patient. He's always there to help out his friends, no matter what kind of trouble they get into. Whether it's Blue or any other friend at the house, Mac's the go-to guy for a rescue mission. He's a true friend and a problem-solving pro, but he can also be childish and a prankster. In some episodes, we see more of his cheery, childish side, which is a reminder that deep inside, he is still just a kid. Despite being sensible most of the time, if he so much as takes a tiny bite of something sweet, he transforms into a total sugar-fueled maniac. His mom knows this all too well, which is why she tries to keep him away from sugary treats. But there was this one episode called Partying is Such Sweet Soiree where Mac couldn't resist the temptation. Just one drop of that heavily sugared punch sent him on a wild ride. He crashed Blue's party, started gobbling up sweets like there was no tomorrow, and went on a wild adventure in search of more sugar. I mean, picture this, Mac streaking through town in the middle of the night fueled by his sugar high. It's actually hilarious, and it just goes to show that even the most sensible kids can let loose when the sugar rush kicks in. In A Fair Weather Friends, he got so furious with Blue that he turned to ice cream to cope with his emotions. He ended up eating way too much of it, and the sugar rush took over, turning him into a hyperactive ball of energy. In the Halloween special, Nightmare on Wilson Way, everyone was determined to keep Mac away from candy to prevent a sugar-fueled disaster. They tied him to a bed, but Blue, thinking everyone else was turned into zombies, couldn't resist the temptation and gave Mac some candy. And you can guess what happened next. Mac went on a crazy candy-fueled spree, running around the house and even stealing candy from trick-or-treaters. In Race for Your Life, Mac and Blue, Mac got his hands on an energy drink, which set him on another sugar-fueled adventure. This time, he was just running around like a maniac, not so much fixated on finding more sugar, but it was still a wild sight to see. When he goes on a sugar high, he turns into a total superhero. It's wild. In Partying is Such Sweet Soiree, he zoomed out of Foster's faster than you can blink. And in Nightmare on Wilson Way, he went on a rampage through the whole house. Mac was like a tornado, taking down Wilt and Coco with one punch and sending Eduardo flying through the front door. And get this, he even lifted Eduardo above his head and tossed him away like it was no big deal. I'm telling you, when that sugar rush hits, Mac becomes a force to be reckoned with. It's just amazing how something as innocent as sugar can turn Mac into an absolute whirlwind of energy and mischief. Wonder what's that a reference for? And now let's talk about Blue. Blue is Mac's imaginary friend who was created by Mac when he was just 3 years old. Unlike Mac, who can be compassionate, Blue is self-centered, greedy, narcissistic, and immature. You know, even though Blue can be hyper and sometimes a bit clueless, he does really care about his friends though. Like in Camp Keep a Good Mac Down, he kinda went overboard with eating all the food and drinking all the water, which wasn't cool. But in Read 'em and Weep, when Eduardo was in trouble, Blue got all emotional and confessed how much Eduardo meant to him as a friend. When they found out Eduardo was okay, Blue tried to play it cool, but you can tell he really cared. And in the sweet stench of success, he was missing Mac and his friends so much, he wanted to go home and even told the Hollywood producer that he misses them. Blue might act all tough and sarcastic, but deep down, he values his friends a lot and isn't afraid to ask for their help when he needs it. It's sweet, really, even if he tries to hide it sometimes. Blue can be super lazy when it comes to simple stuff, like in Squeeze the Day, when he dropped a potato chip on the floor and totally refused to pick it up. He went all over the place looking for someone else to do it for him, even passing the chip multiple times. It's like he'd rather do a whole lot of work trying to find someone else to pick it than just doing it himself. I mean, come on, it's just the chip. But that's Blue for you, always finding ways to avoid doing any work. Guess he just loves taking it easy. Blue gets into trouble with them all the time, and I think it's because Mr. Harriman is a stickler for rules and order. He's super serious about his job and won't tolerate any funny business. With all those mansion rules, it's no wonder Blue sees him as a bit of a killjoy. In that one episode, The Blue Super Dude and the Magic Potato of Power, Blue really goes all out and paints Mr. Harriman as a villain, but deep down, they're still buddies. Even if Blue doesn't always know when to zip it, they've got a friendship that's pretty interesting, to say the least. Now let's move on to Wilt, the most kind-hearted and honest of them all. In the episode Good Wilt Hunting, Wilt's backstory is unveiled, and it's quite touching. His creator, Jordan Michaels, wasn't very skilled at basketball, so he brought Wilt to life, giving him a left arm and eye that were just like his current ones. With Wilt by his side, Jordan became an unstoppable basketball player, and they had an amazing year together. But then things took a dramatic turn when a jealous boy created Foul Larry, a giant with a basketball head, to compete against Jordan and Wilt. During a crucial moment in the game, Wilt made a selfless choice and saved Jordan's life, but it cost him dearly. His left arm got crushed and he lost his left eye, bending it into the shape it has now. Wilt didn't care about the victory anymore, all he cared about was Jordan's safety. However, feeling heartbroken and responsible for the loss, Wilt ran away, leaving Jordan searching for him. Sadly, Jordan could only find Wilt's wristband from his broken arm. After many years had passed, Jordan Michaels had become a successful professional basketballer. Despite his success, he never forgot the selfless sacrifice Wilt had made for him all those years ago. Eventually, they were reunited and it was a touching moment. Jordan revealed that he had kept Wilt's armband all this time as a precious reminder of their friendship. During their reunion, Jordan offered Wilt a tempting opportunity to live with him and become famous. While Wilt appreciated the offer and cherished his friendship with Jordan, he ultimately decided to stay at Foster's home for imaginary friends. He believed that he could be of help to other kids who needed someone like him. It was a tough decision for both of them, but Wilt felt it was the right one. Although Jordan was saddened by Wilt's choice, he respected it. They made a compromise to keep in touch and visit each other occasionally. Their bond remained strong, and Wilt's decision reflected the true essence of his caring and selfless nature. Wilt is just the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's all about helping others, and he takes pride in fighting and caring for abandoned imaginary friends. He's got a heart of gold, maybe even to a fault. Wilt can't say no to anyone, no matter how inconvenient it might be. Sometimes he even apologizes a lot, even when he doesn't need to. Wilt's got some serious skills too. He's an amazing dancer, but he does get nervous in front of big crowds, like that time at the talent show. Poor guy froze up with stage fright, but hey, nobody's perfect. Overall, Wilt's the sweetest friend you could ask for, even if his niceness gets him into some tricky situations sometimes. Blue is a master at taking advantage of Wilt's kindness, pretending to be sad or hurt just to get his way. Sneaky, right? Don't let that fool you though. In Room with a Feud, he really wanted that awesome vacant bedroom in the house, so he pulled out his pretending to be sad act, hoping to get Wilt to give it to him. He said things like, "But Wilt, if you take it, you'll hurt my feelings."
You'll be hurting my feelings.
Classic Blue, right? But Wilt, being the kind-hearted but also smart guy he is, saw right through it. He replied with, "You know, I was just thinking about that. And the thing is, I really don't care." Whoa, that must have been a bit of a reality check for Blue. Wilt sure has his principles. In Beat with a Shtick, he wasn't going to stand for Blue making fun of tall people, so he refused to help him. Good for him for sticking up for what's right. And in Bust the Two of Us, Mac and Blue tried to get Wilt to distract Frankie while they took to Foster's bus for a joyride. But Wilt just couldn't handle all the lies and tricks anymore. He finally had enough and had to come clean, saying, "I am trapped in a tangled web of lies and I can't do it anymore. It's too much." But he quickly apologized, of course. In Squeeze the Day, Wilt apparently got Foster's banned from the beach after some mysterious mishap. Involving homeless jellyfish and lots of sand. I guess we'll never know the full story here, but Wilt's such a sweetheart, always trying to help, but sometimes even the kindest of us have our limits. Wilt's dark side sure comes out in the episode Pranks for Nothing. Blue's all excited about pulling the last prank, but when he sits down on a whoopee cushion, he realizes someone got him before he could get anyone else. He starts demanding to know who did it, and there's Wilt, smiling at the end like he's got a little mischievous streak. It turns out Wilt was the one who pulled that last prank on Blue. Who would have known, right? Coco is truly one of a kind. Despite only saying one word, she manages to convey a wide range of emotions through her actions. She's kind-hearted, always ready to help her friends at Foster's, and her quirky and silly behavior adds a lot of fun to the house. But don't be fooled by her seemingly simple vocabulary. Coco can be surprisingly sarcastic. Isn't it intriguing how everyone at Foster's can understand Coco, even though she only says Coco? Mac, Frankie, Madam Foster, and the gang seem to have this special bond with Coco, allowing them to know exactly what she means in different situations. In Store Wars, she cleverly used the mall's intercom to alert security and shoppers, showing her resourcefulness. Then, in Cuckoo for Coco Cards, she led Mac's classmates on a tour of Foster's, and it seemed like they understood her without any trouble. but poor Blue sometimes gets a bit lost in translation. Remember that episode House of Blues when he thought Coco was offering him chocolate instead of juice? He kept on going until Wilt explained that that's all she ever says. Classic Blue. However, something really funny happened in the episode The Big Picture when Coco said the word cheese, which caused everyone to storm off. Her appearance is just as unique as her personality. She was created by a girl who crashed on a desert island, which might explain her palm tree head and airplane body. Two scientists named Douglas and Adam discovered her and have been her caretakers ever since. Coco's original creator remains a mystery as she has never been mentioned or known to anyone. Despite her best efforts to communicate with Douglas and Adam about her past, it seems they may have unintentionally ignored her or couldn't understand her. Nevertheless, Coco has found a loving home at Foster's where she's cherished and valued for the wonderful friend she is. Now, Eduardo may look tough as nails, but he's actually a big softie. He's like a gentle giant in the house. Even though he's supposed to be a protector friend, he is a total scaredy cat. I mean, seriously, he wouldn't hurt a fly. He's terrified of those little bugs and he's not afraid to admit it. It's kind of funny how this hulking friend is so afraid of the tiniest creatures. Eduardo's got a soft spot for those adorable pups, especially the little ones. In Who Let the Dogs In, he couldn't resist adopting a cute dog named Chewie. The only problem was that Mr. Harriman, the rule enforcer of the house, has this fear of dogs, so Eduardo had to keep Chewie a secret. But guess what? Turns out Chewie is actually an imaginary friend too. So they got to stay in Foster's and Mr. Harriman is not too thrilled about it. In The Buck Swaps Here, he stumbles upon a lucky dollar worth a whopping $100. And you know what he does with it? He buys a pink dollhouse for $99.99, leaving just 1 penny behind. But that's not all. Turns out, Eduardo was a savvy investor too. He's got a hidden safe with gold bars, stacks of dollar bills, and even a bunch of diamonds. And get this, he's totally into the Beanie Baggy franchise and has a massive collection of them in his room. So he was created by a tough young girl named Nina Valarosa who grew up to become a police officer. Back in her rough neighborhood, she needed someone to scare off bullies and protect her little brother. And guess who came to the rescue? Our gentle giant, Eduardo. But here's the twist. Even though he looks super tough, Eduardo is actually the most affectionate friend at Foster's. Eduardo's true purpose, as Nina puts it, was to teach her to face her fears. He might not protect himself, but he taught Nina how to be brave and stand up to the bullies. They've got such a special bond, and Eduardo is still fiercely protective of her. Nina's a cool police officer and all, but when she's around Eduardo, she becomes super cheerful. It's heartwarming to see how much they care for each other. The series finale, titled Goodbye to Blue, marks the ending of the show. The episode kicks off with Blue anxiously waiting for Mac, who's super late for their daily visit. Just then, the doorbell rings and a family shows up looking to adopt a Blue friend with no nose. Everyone's in a bit of a frenzy and they gather for a court in Blue's room thinking he might get adopted. But guess what? It turns out the Blue friend is actually No-Nose Ned, who's been patiently waiting for a new family. Phew, what a relief for Blue. But then comes the bombshell. Mr. Harriman explains that Mac won't be coming because he's moving away. But Blue's not one to sit around and mope. He rallies his friends Eduardo, Coco, and Wilt to plan a special day for Mac before he leaves. Time to make some memories. The next day, Mac finally shows up at the home and Blue is determined to make that day a memorable one. But guess what? All the other friends have their own plans to spend time with Mac too. Wilt wants to shoot some hoops, Madam Foster baked some sugar-free cookies, Coco wants a portrait session with her artistic friend, and even Pizza Party has a request for Mac to write them a song. But Blue is determined to do something super special. He wants to jump the shark. Yeah, you heard that right. He goes on a wild search for a shark in the swimming pool, but things take an unexpected turn when Frankie reveals a surprise party for Mac. Normally, Mac hates surprises, but this time he's genuinely shocked and happy to see all his friends, even Goo and other familiar faces, gathered for a farewell celebration. As Blue gets increasingly frustrated about not being able to pull off his shark stunt in time, a nerdy shark and Madam Foster's friend Flo Jerkins come to his rescue. They create a fake shark fin and Blue jumps over it in style, making it a fun and unforgettable moment for Mac's special day. So after the celebration, Mac finally opens up and explains the whole situation to Blue and the gang. It turns out that they're not moving to a whole new city. They're just moving to a bigger apartment within the same complex they already live in. Mac's mom got a promotion and needs a home office, so that's why they need a bigger place. The interesting part is that their new apartment was previously occupied by their neighbor Louise, who happens to be the creator of Cheese. Louise and her family are moving to a different complex that has a strict no pets or imaginary friends policy. Poor Cheese has to leave his home and move to Foster's. Oh man, let me tell you about Cheese. He is, let's just say, not the sharpest tool in the shed, you know? Like, he never pays attention and just doesn't listen to anyone, and boy can he be annoying sometimes. People find him to be a total nuisance because of it. Plus, he's got a bunch of issues like gingivitis and who knows what else. Poor guy. But the craziest part is, he just doesn't get it when others tell him he doesn't live at Foster's or that he has to go home. It's like he can't process simple information. Cheese just seems to be in his own little world and there's no getting through to him. It's both frustrating and kind of funny at the same time. And on this note, folks, our show comes to an end. Cheese joins Foster's, and let's just say everyone's in for a wild ride. Living with him is a total roller coaster. But hey, it's already been quite the adventure. As the final credits roll, we see a heartwarming hand-drawn scene of Mac and Blue walking off into the sunset, and the words "Thanks for watching" pop up on the screen. It's been one crazy, fun-filled journey, and we're grateful for all the memories. So this was Foster's home for imaginary friends from beginning to end in detail. If you enjoyed the video as much as we did making it for you, drop us a like and comment down below which one was your favorite imaginary friend. Also, subscribe to our channel if you want more tunes like this recapped on your feed, and as always, thanks for watching. Peace!